So like super cute hotel, you're already in a super cute space, like all the things. So
we do our own little piece of that. I feel like my worst bottleneck at times because I'm always money conscious. So like we'd like to go big. Sometimes I'm just like, how much does that cost?
How much is that gonna cost?
Because at the end of the day, it's just like, Yeah, we've obviously fully embraced. I'm always constant. Like I'm already looking at summer. Like what kind of things can I do in the summer?
Summer events.
Igloo Town's a great little thing, but like it's an ebb and flow thing. It's like how do I keep the consistency of Igloo Town throughout the year? So that's kind of where my mind's been at. Andrea, so I want to start off very early with you and not only talk about the role that you're in here in Tulsa, but even growing up. I'm very interested in early life because a lot of times that's how an individual is molded.
Right.
So tell me early Andrea, maybe
Early
school
Andrea.
life.
School life.
Yeah, like
I've been in school a long time. I just got out of school. What school?
Yeah,
Which
Dr.
school?
Dr. Dre.
Right.
Let's be serious for 2 seconds.
Since school
here.
last week.
I don't know, middle school, elementary, where would you like to start?
So middle school, elementary school. So I grew up in Canton, Ohio.
Okay.
Very small town, even smaller than Tulsa.
Are you Cleveland Cavaliers fan?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Every year, my dad, he's a Browns fan.
Okay.
He retired, so they don't even have it anymore. They used to get the helmet, the Browns helmet next to the address, repainted every year. Like that was the start of like Browns season. So we are those people.
Okay, I get it.
Loyal fans, loyal Brownies.
I love it.
But yeah, so growing up, I went to Whipple Heights Elementary.
Okay.
But yeah, very much predominantly white school.
Okay.
We were, in an affluent family. My mom is an attorney. My father is a human resources executive. And I say that because it shapes like my decision to go get a PhD, like very high scholastic achieving, like very type A individuals.
Okay.
So, Andrea's a PhD, my brother's an attorney, my sister's a founder. We just are very like Enneagram 3s. And so, elementary school, middle school was very much like, we were the kids that were like, oh, we got a 3.0. And my mom would be like, well, what happened? Where's your
3.8? Where's your 4.0?
Where's your 4.0? Not even 3.8. Where's your 4.0? It was so like very foundational.
Okay.
And that like excellence was like the standard, right? And so like it doesn't matter if you play basketball, like my brother wanted to play football, like you can do all of that, which my mom would say like those are extracurricular, but if you can't get the curricular, like we don't get to extracurricular.
Right.
And so I think really at the foundation, it just taught me like you have to be able to manage multiple things, but you have to be able to multiply manage things well.
Sure.
I think the idea of just, who I was in middle school was very much shaped by like knowing that like we just needed to be out front. We needed to be doing things like at the best that we could at that
there was
level.
three siblings. You
siblings.
were in middle.
I'm the oldest.
Youngest.
I forgot to say I'm the oldest.
All right.
Yeah, I like to say I'm my mom's favorite child. However, she won't acknowledge that. But if she didn't have a good oldest child, there wouldn't have been any other ones. So,
right.
Anyway, I'm the favorite.
So you were mentioning like early on, and we're gonna play here for a little while of like your mom, your dad, kind of like instilling early on like excellence. We strive for whatever it is, basketball, whatever we're striving for excellence. Was there early on pressure? Did you feel pressure of like, geez, like I better, you know what I'm saying? Like, was that like, I don't want to say a deterrent, but did that affect you in a negative way? Or do you think that ended up pushing you in a positive way? No,
actually, after some therapy, which I think we all need.
Oh yeah.
I realized like that was actually it made me excel, but I became extremely critical of myself, like in my adult life, and overly obsessed with like, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do now? So that has been now, right? Like I have since like started a whole community around stillness and rest and not being so preoccupied and like what's next.
Right.
Because I think that like while excellence is a standard, there's also a benefit to just extending grace to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't really learn that. I'm learning that actually like in real time right now.
Right.
As a 34-year-old, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the scholarships that we had, the opportunities, I, you know, many people know, like I worked in Japan and I worked in Hawaii. I mean, those things like were a byproduct of just me being out front and me leading. And so I'm so grateful that like that was like the way that we did life, right?
Right.
And also like realizing how to balance that, you know?
I want to talk about, I want to hang here for a second. I love the criticism part. I'm very much guilty of that as well. And kind of you're your own worst critic.
Yeah.
When did you first start to recognize that this is a problem? And then maybe second to that would be like, you obviously over the years have almost released that or still trying. You said you're actively working at it, still trying to release that aspect of you of like, you know what, Dre, it's okay right now because of not achieving this level quite yet. Give yourself a little bit of slack. Talk to me about that self-criticism journey, because I think a lot of people struggle with it. I struggle with it.
Yeah.
How have the lows of that and the highs of that kind of affected where you're at today?
Yeah, so I would say is it the low? Well, I don't know if it's the low, because it was in my life a high, right? Like I had just graduated with my PhD, and I went to Europe over the summer. And a friend of mine, he told me, I want you to use Europe to explore what rest looks like for you. Because I was 33 and I had gone, like, I moved and I did this and I did this and I did this and I have this PhD, and now I'm like, where am I going to work? What am I going to do? Like, am I going to stay in Tulsa? And I was just like, oh my God, like my mind was just, it was like I graduated and I was so preoccupied with thinking about like, what's next?
Yeah.
So I would say like I was at an all-time high, but all-time high is in like I had finished the thing. There's no more school left for me. I don't care what certificate program is out there. I am done. So whatever they got going, I'm not interested in it. But there was no more school left for me. And I felt like I honestly felt like I could breathe. Like, and I don't know if that's a low, right? Where you've reached this point where you feel like you cannot breathe. But it was like, I just felt like I was running.
Breathe as in rest?
Breathe as in like, I could like just take a breath and rest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
I had run, I had sprinted, what felt like a sprint, particularly the last like semester. I had sprinted, and I think just graduating was like, whew, you know, like I could just breathe.
Yeah.
So went to Europe, and I got to say.
How long were you in Europe for again?
I was in Europe for 5 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Missed my flight, so I kind of extended the trip. You should show up to the airport at least, and be at the gate. The thing is, I was at the airport and still missed my flight, but it's a whole other story.
Did you take this recommendation from a friend to use that time as rest?
Yeah. I was going. My sister called me. So the other thing is like we're also really spontaneous. Like I don't have to have thought through all the things. It's like Germany, Beyonce, cool. We went. So like I hadn't had any of the other things figured out, but I just kind of knew like
we'll fill in the gaps.
We'll fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
So it was very much like my sister got tickets to Beyonce. It was in Germany, and we're gonna go. So initially it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go take this European vacation and rest. It was like we're going to see Beyonce, and then like, well, what do we want to do? We're gonna be in Europe, right? Yeah. So it was initially like, yeah, we're gonna go and have this like really cool vacation. But my friend who had been to Europe was like, Europe is a gift to yourself. Like, use it as such. Explore what does rest mean to you. Not to, because there was people that were coming on the trip with me, but like, what is it going to be to you? So leaning into like, maybe we don't go see this today. And I'm usually like, okay, we're doing this and we're doing this. Maybe we don't make it to that, and that's okay. Like, maybe we hiked and today we don't feel like doing that. And like, maybe I do actually want pasta in a way that in another, you know, in America, I feel like I don't eat pasta as often because I don't want to be big. But in Italy, you're going to eat pasta. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like leaning into things that you just saying yes. Like just saying yes to them, allowing yourself to say yes, giving yourself permission to do so.
Was this kind of the first time that you were able to do that, or physically, like mentally thinking, I have to do this because it's probably for my mental well-being that this is probably a good thing?
It felt like I could and I wanted to.
Okay.
Like I could do it because I wasn't occupied with like school, and I wanted to because I was in Europe, and like a can and a desire really brought those things together. Like having the ability to and having the desire to opened up my just candidly like my ability to, I guess, like that just. It was like, I can. So doing that, like Europe was every day. My favorite day of the week is Sunday.
Okay.
It used to not be because my parents dragged us to church. And now we've come back into a relationship with Sunday, and we love Sunday. But every day truly felt like Sunday.
Right.
Like every day was just this ease. And if I've learned anything, it's like I actually desire for my life to be ease. So when we talk about like releasing that pressure and releasing, you know, the need to always be, like, I am leaning into like everywhere that I'm supposed to be, I will be. And everything that I'm supposed to do, I'll do. And the people that I'm supposed to know, I'll know. And the things are like, without me running to it. That doesn't mean that I'm not walking with purpose or whatever, but there's just a level of like almost surrenderance to like timing, and to also, I'm a believer, so also just like the divine timing and divine like favor of God and where I'm supposed to be. So there's just people, it was like noticeable. Like my close friends were like,
what's going on with her? Yeah.
You moving different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm moving different.
Yeah.
I'm moving different. And it isn't even, in the way that I don't think is impactful. It's just, I'm practicing like value alignment. Sure. Like, what do I value?
What's important? Got it. Yeah.
And in like doing that, actually, like there's conferences that this particular conference season has been heavy. Some conferences, like, that's actually not in alignment right now. Right. There are things that I know I want to do.
Okay.
There are things that I've said I've wanted to do that are happening. And so I don't want to be ill prepared for the things that I've said I've wanted to do and the things that I've asked, God to be able to do.
Right.
Because I was doing stuff that actually didn't align. So in alignment shifting too, like upon coming back, you're still long enough to realize like what is actually important. And I'm finding I have all the time. I actually have the time to like hang with friends or to stop and check in and see how someone's doing. And so, like
I love that.
I love this pace that I'm in.
I love that.
I love this pace.
So it sounds like you're just kind of like understanding it, one thing, but actively practicing it is another. You're
Very
in the
much
practice
so.
stage.
I'm in the
right
practice
now.
stage of it.
Yeah. So what things are you finding specific? Give me specifics here. Let's get into the details of what are the most restful things right now for you.
The most restful things right now are...
Is it just sitting at home and flipping through like Netflix?
Yeah.
Is it that?
Yeah.
Is it
like
eating pasta?
I don't eat pasta as much. I only indulge in pasta in Europe, and I'm going to save it for that. Like, it just...
Got it.
But, it's coming... Like yesterday, I came off of a plane. I was in New Orleans, and New Orleans for a conference.
Okay.
So, the city is busy.
Sure.
The conference is busy.
Sure.
So when Andrea came back home, she was not. Like, I was perfectly okay. I restarted Grey's Anatomy because the best seasons of Grey's Anatomy, in my opinion, are seasons 1 through like 10. Okay. So I started season 1. I'm in season 2 now.
Okay.
But I started season 1, and rest just looks like watching that.
Yeah.
In my mind, not worried about edits that I need to do or things that I need to. And there was a happy hour yesterday that like I, said I was going to go to and committed to going to. But rest is recognizing, like, I know I might have said that. But like if I just evaluate where I am, it's like actually like I've socialized a lot.
All right.
And I'm going to go socialize tonight with the same person I made a commitment to. You know what I'm saying? So like
we still got time.
We got time. We got time. So
it's
rest for me is giving myself like permission to be at home, to be in solitude. So I use this practice of like solitude and silence.
Okay.
And so solitude is just like me time.
Do you meditate at all?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
In the mornings.
I would love to hear. Let's go through your. I typically don't. I don't know if I've asked this question at all. Your morning routine, if you have one. I would love to hear a meditation, like waking up. What what does the to-do list look like in the morning?
In the morning, I usually am up between like 5 and 6.
Okay.
And that usually is just kind of listening to my body.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, how are we feeling? I hit 34, so it requires stretching. I don't know about you, but my morning routine is to stretch.
Okay.
So gotta do that.
Okay.
The one thing I say is like, I'm enough. I'm enough. Every day, I'm enough. I actually started putting like these Post-its on the mirror in my bedroom and then the mirror in my bathroom, because those are the ones I look at the most in the morning.
Okay.
So I'm enough. And
what does that mean to you?
I'm enough means that it is where I am in this moment is enough. That doesn't mean that I'm not learning things. That doesn't mean that I won't be learning things. But like in this present moment, I am enough. And I also think too, like one of the other ones I began saying is like, I am significant. And I really got into that from a scripture, but I'm significant in that, like, sometimes when you see something or someone is insignificant, you treat it as such. You know, you don't care for it. You dismiss it, or you don't acknowledge its significance. And so, like, sometimes I would see myself as insignificant and feel as though I were. And so I am significant and I am enough.
I like that.
Were affirmations that I need to say.
I love that.
Like, before I go out and do anything, and actually even more so, before you go out and do anything, Dre, you're enough and you're significant. I usually go make a cup of tea. I'm probably like, most times I'm reading my Bible. I've gotten into this practice of like reading my Bible in the morning, but also with ease. Like if I'm a little more tired, like maybe I don't read it in the morning. Like it's not
sure
to the letter here,
sure.
But it's ease. It's slow mornings. I work out at Orange Theory. Love that for me. In fact, my friend Coop comes to work out with me too, or we work out together.
Yeah.
So mornings are always going to be like some affirmation of like, I'm significant, I'm enough. A stretch. I usually will take my dog out quickly.
Breakfast is
not
that
a breakfast person, not in the morning.
Okay.
So usually I'm out of my house by 7:15.
And that's to go to Orange.
Go to Orange. Okay. Yeah, I'm out of my house by 7:15 to go to Orange, and then I'm usually back by like 8:30, 8:45.
Okay.
That is like breakfast. Sometimes I'm right now into this like really just traditional breakfast. So like
eggs,
brioche
toast.
bread, eggs,
Okay.
blackberry jam specifically, like something about it. And walk my dog, Zoom. I typically don't have meetings scheduled before like 9:30. Okay. Just because that gives me time to like pour into myself and come back in to do what I need to do at, the level that I do. So I have a blocked kind of morning for that. So it's not that I'm not up. It's just Andrea has to like fill herself up before going out.
I love that. I think that there's very much, it's so funny. I'm just thinking about my own life and kind of how routine has definitely served me, and not having routine has created more chaos. Right now I have a 6-month-old at home, and it's rough. It's rough having routine when there's wake up calls throughout the night and you're just feeling exhausted. So I get that. And I love that part about just being enough and being okay with where you're at despite all the other things that might be saying other things to you. Because I think it gets very loud. It gets very loud internally. So I would like to talk about something that if you're comfortable talking about, I'd love to go there. You're still single, correct? Or seeing somebody? I'd like to go into your personal.
Go into it.
No.
This is why you want to go into it.
Let me set this up a little bit.
Set it up, Jeremy. Set it up.
One thing that I have found is I know a lot of females, very professional females that are still single, that are still looking for that Mr. Right.
Right.
I would love, if you're comfortable with this, Dre, I'd love to talk about not only the struggles, because I know they're real out there, like what does it take right now? What's going on right now in your personal life? And again, if you don't want to talk about it, I understand. I love exploring and understanding, because whether you're male or female, just late in life and still trying to find that person. Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind diving in, I'd love to get into there.
Let's get into it. Well, do the listeners know we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Okay. I mean, for the most part,
Great. Well, Tulsa, particularly for a black woman, is tough. Period. Exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very challenging dating in Tulsa. It's just not a lot of, I mean, for me, I prefer to date a black man.
Sure.
And, black man, professional, you don't have to have a PhD. That's not even a requirement. But just like on the same kind of professional plane.
I get it.
There's just very
driven.
few,
Yeah.
Very few.
You don't want to slob. Yeah.
So it's just not, we just don't have a lot of black men.
So the pool is pretty small.
Very small. Very, very, very small. It's giving 0 results found. If you filtered it, it's like 0 results found.
You are pouring. It sounds like you're pouring into yourself a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of self-care, a lot of self-reflection.
A lot of self-reflection.
So you're obviously at this point of really probably finding out what you want in a partner,
right?
Who that partner is for you.
Yeah.
You had mentioned a couple of those items. I think it's interesting because Elise in our office, I mentioned it. Yeah.
Elise is normally here. Elise is normally here. We get it.
I'm just kind of talking through. He's laughing because I know he knows I love this. And you're saying it just you feel like the person that you're specifically looking for, that just Tulsa's probably not it. And
I wouldn't even say for all people. I mean, I think for black, I'm speaking to black women.
Got it. Specifically.
And so specifically for black women, I think it's just difficult if you're not a black woman like Elise.
Sorry, I'm not trying to compare here. I
don't know. I just feel like it's just seemingly in my lived experience it had felt more difficult. Now I am dating. If we're gonna get into it,
okay.
I am dating a man who I've actually been friends with for 15 years.
Cool.
So, we started talking, I think we started dating, I'm 17. He broke up with me. I'm going to put that out there. And I'm going to send this to him so he can hear the story. He broke up with me. He was at the Ohio State University. I was going to Toledo. And it was just timing.
Sure.
It was just, we were in 2 different cities and all the things. And over the past, I would say 3 years was probably the last 3 years. I was fresh out of a relationship. And so just, again, timing is everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't the right time, even for him. But I think he had acknowledged later that was maybe the beginning of him figuring out, what does this kind of look like?
Yeah.
He was my +1 at my sister's wedding.
I love it.
And so I think that was kind of, he had been around my family.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the beginning of really trying to figure it out. And then within the last 4 months, I've totally lost track of time. I know this is November, somewhere around April, May. Well, actually, he came to visit me in January, so I would say January.
Okay.
And then it just was he started actively because I was like, what do we do?
Yeah.
If you come back to Tulsa and we not together, I'm trying to figure out what's up, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was very much no, I'm actively pursuing you.
Oh wow, good for you.
And and that felt absolutely. It just felt okay, we can do this.
Yeah.
So we're in a long distance relationship.
Okay.
Which, works. It's not always desired.
Right,
but
sure.
I have appreciated the friendship that we have in our relationship. And you asked me what are the things that were important. I can't be doing all this self-care and that not be existent in my relationship. So the way that we actively communicate, his level of self-awareness coupled with my level of self-awareness has brought things that, yesterday we was on the phone. I had said something the day before, and yesterday we got on the phone and he was like, yeah, I'm not gonna hold you. We need to, he went and just addressed it. And he was like, is this gonna be, I was like, oh no, So we just are very we gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I think we have just such a level of not just self-awareness, but a level of respect for each other, the growth that we've seen over time, that none of us want to come and disrupt that. We want to add to that.
I love that. It's obviously something that I personally am not struggling with, but I see a lot of people, like I said, I know a lot of people that are single, and you being obviously where you're at in life, there would be an understanding of like, okay, this person or this man needs to be at a certain understanding level, or where I'm not out to play games.
Right,
just
we're
like,
not out there.
yeah, dating in your mid-30s. It's a little bit different game out there.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel pressure like to get married? Because I know in the Bible Belt, a lot of people feel that pressure of let's get hooked up, let's have a kids, a bunch of like a big old family. Like, did you ever feel any of that from like any family members?
Family members, yeah, like especially after I hit 30.
Okay.
So like I feel like, you know, in my family we didn't really have kids until like later.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, you know, when I graduated undergrad, like you know, where you're having your kids. But I think when I hit 30,
okay,
especially when I was in my previous relationship, like we were together for 3 years, and it was like, you know, okay.
Yeah.
And the marriage part before the kids part, at least in our family. But yeah, I did feel that.
Interesting.
Feel that.
Yeah.
From and not in this, you know, ticking time bomb kind of way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we, you know, I'm getting better at setting like boundaries. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I had to like say to my mom, like, I don't know if I'm gonna have kids, and I'm just putting this out there. Like,
I like it. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. You know, I have always said I wanted to, but like when I really think about it, do I want to? Because I actually enjoy my life right now. Like, and we're actually only going this way, right? Like now you're making the money that you're making.
Yeah.
You're in a relationship. Yeah. You can travel. You can, you know, move around. I do have a dog. And so I'm currently actually trying to figure out like who's gonna watch Quincy, because Andrea's going to Houston on Tuesday. So
we gotta figure this out.
I'm gonna either have to go, you know, but like that's about all the extent of like care that I'm really committed to. But you know, certainly with my partner now and thinking about kind of next phase, what are my contributions to the world outside of just, you know, the things that I put out, but like who becomes like kind of this carrier of my legacy. I think about kids. So and it really has just been in my own time. I've had, you know, friends of mine who've talked to me about, you know, freezing their eggs because, you know, we are typically having kids at this point later. And so how do we make sure that there's some kids to be had at that point when we do decide? But yeah, I did feel that pressure from my family. And so I've had to like kind of put out there, like, I don't know. And when I know, you all will know. And, you know, if it happens, it happens.
You made a comment about the trajectory of where you're headed. Yeah. And where you're at in life, obviously understanding kind of a little bit of the background that you've kind of come up, and you mentioned being in different remote locations, it just kind of helping you out where you're at today. Do you have a framework of where you're headed, of what you're doing? Do you have the goal set? And I'm not talking about give me your 10-year plan, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about in the next tangible, next few steps. What does that look like? What disciplines maybe even of like, how are you going to achieve those things? Or are you just completely at a spot of just like being free of all of that stuff? I'd love to understand a little bit more. And I know you're kind of in that headspace of like being in just finished school, so you just got a lot of that past you. But I think that at least your mental state is a place of like, I'm going places. I'm doing things. What's those next couple steps?
Going back to like values, right? Like when it comes to work that I want to do, I don't know like the company. I don't know, you know, where yet. Sure. I do actually believe and know that like my next most immediate step is like in a bigger market, just like a big city. Yeah. And again, because I'm single, and I'm not single, but like no kids, no responsibilities. I say single as in like we're only thinking about me. Sure. Like I'm only thinking about me and like my partner. But yeah, it's like big city is next. And I mean big city, I mean like New York, Philly, Houston. Being around family is important. So, you know, somewhere in the near future, that's going to happen. So those are like values, right? Like I definitely, not big city's not a value, but what is important is being around my family. So that is a value. I desire to kind of see how I would move around in a bigger city. I imagine, you know, working for a larger kind of company or big company. Sure. But really, you know, my like thing in terms of value is just like impact. So at the end of the day, I desire a role, or I desire work where I'm going to be forward facing. I desire a role where I'm going to be interacting and helping develop people, like either coaching or leading or putting together materials that train and coach and lead, whatever. And, and thinking about social impact and social responsibility in a way that moves culture forward for Black folks, in a way that it gives us agency and autonomy, and also kind of the realization of like who we are. I think this dominant narrative for Black folks is often one where we're placed at a deficit, or one where we're placed in this like, diminished light.
Sure.
And so at an individual level, at a micro level and a macro level, like I want to dispel that. I want to empower people, particularly Black folks, to believe more in themselves, to set up, habits of rest and stillness and belief that they're enough and they're significant.
Yeah.
And in that, how do we move the needle on things that you want to do? How do I open up opportunities for that to abound for my community? So when I think about value, like the work or the role is going to have the through line of that. I'm an educator, so I feel like the through line is going to always at some point be education.
Right.
And most immediately, I feel like that's going to be in a big city. And yeah, the rest, I don't know.
You talked about moving forward. You have a couple of these things of educating and just people at the end of the day. People. Why are you attracted to people? Why is people so much of where you are today, but where you're wanting to go in the future?
Oh, I think that's kind of like, it's a gift of mine, being able to connect with people. I was at this conference a few days ago, and this guy used the word convening. And so I feel like when I look at my life, I've one of the things that I feel like I've always been able to do is convene people or gather people and connect with people. So if it's, I know this person that could do this thing, or I can bring together a group of fellows, or I can bring together a group of Black professionals, or I can, like, it just has always somehow been connected to people. I love kind of interacting with people. I love this idea of like, how can I be someone that showed them something that they didn't know, either about themselves or the world around them? How can I, introduce someone that they didn't know? How can I be this kind of conduit? So I think when I think about my life and the things that I feel not just skilled in and like gifted in, but just that come almost kind of second nature, it feels like it's steeped in the involvement with people.
And people have always, was that something just early on that you just started falling in love with? Is that something that over time you realized, you know what, I really want to pursue this. I really want to go down this path of bettering others? Because that's what at the end of the day it sounds like.
Yeah,
it's
betterment
like
of others.
you facilitate these groups, but at the end of the day, you feel like you're extracting some sort of energy or some sort of a value from this, maybe because you see other people enjoying themselves, or you see other people benefiting from it.
Yeah, I was always the girl that like, I knew I wanted to be a teacher when I was like 5. Like I told you, I'm the oldest of 3.
Yeah.
So Alicia and Stanton, my siblings, they were like my students. And before they were born, I probably was teaching like imaginary kids or something like that. But like, I just always knew I was going to be a teacher.
Yeah.
What I didn't know is how teaching could look so differently. Like that's what I'm discovering now. It's like education, I actually call it education, but like education looks so different than like the way that I thought it was going to be. But I think more than people, it's impact. At the end of the day, when you've met me, did I make you feel differently about yourself? Did I make you understand something that you wouldn't? Did I help shape the way that you see something different? Because even if I, like whether through my words, whether it through an interaction that I made, but like, how did I make a material difference in your life? And that to me, I just want to be impactful. And when I think about impact, I think that it happens, at least in the way that I see it, like my contribution to an individual, and then individuals collectively impacting communities. And communities impacting families. So it's all really coming back to just individuals and people.
I feel like there's a million and one questions I want to ask there. I love that. I think that early on, well, let me just go there. I think you mentioned your mom quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you have a really good relationship with your mom. Tell me about that relationship. When have you really, is that something that you've always had? Have you had to go back to that relationship and really propagate that and water that relationship? Has it been a struggle? What about your mom? Let's get into it. Yeah. Like, what about your mom really feeds
that
you?
is interesting. So my mom is my mom is now my best friend. Like, and I say now because, she was the one that was like, you can't go out. Did you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She's like the parents.
Yeah.
Being like the disciplinarian and like the standard bearer. And so I laugh because like truly my mom is like my best friend, one of a kind. So my parents divorced when we were 9, when I was 9.
Okay.
We were 9, 6, and 3. And so when my mom divorced, or my mom and dad divorced, we stayed with our mom. We visited our dad, but we stayed with our mom. And, throughout my life, like she's always just been she's always there. Like, I mean, everyone's like, mom is in their own way. And so I feel that same way about my mom. But my mom, for as long as I can remember, has been like the one that exhibits the most care, like, and the most acceptance. I mean, yes, she was very strict and, that like reared us. Mm-hmm. But you reach a point, especially in adulthood, and I would say where we are now, where like at the end of the day, whether it was good or whether it was bad, like I had to go to my mom, things that happened. So it was just like, you just do, and I found that like in the times where I didn't want to bring something to her, it was harder for me to either keep it from her because she could usually tell. Like my mom's the type of person that like it's like, hello, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Like,
it you just and so it was just easier to just bring it all to her, right? And so, and I equally I talk about my mom. Like my mom I said she's an attorney. She's like numbers got to make sense, all the things like on it, right? My dad is a healthy balance to that because my dad has like always been our biggest cheerleader. Like, I don't care. I went from playing basketball to wanting to be in the band. And whose father was out there watching me play the saxophone in the marching band? Mine. My dad has always been like our biggest cheerleader. Yeah. And so like while my mom is like harder on us, like my dad had been this other balance.
Yeah.
And so, my dad is like the one that like, I had a phone call. I got a phone call last week, and I knew I wasn't quite ready to bring it to my mom because it requires me to think about it. Like my mom will be like, "Well, what are you gonna do with it?" And it's like, I actually can't have this conversation with you right now because I know you mean well, and I know that it's, you know what I'm saying.
I get it.
So there's a good balance. Like I'm gonna tell my mom everything. Timing of when I do. It's like, okay, like I've kind of thought about it, but like she's so thorough that like we like work that thing out. My dad is just the one that's gonna be like, whatever it is, it's gonna be fine. I love you. You're like, it's gonna be fine.
Right.
So my dad being this like cheerleader, my mom being this just like really thorough like analysis, like it's it's just a good balance. But our relationship with both of my parents, particularly my dad too, when they divorced. Yeah. I had to rebuild that. Talk about rebuilding. I had to
Let's talk about that. How was that? And going through that.
Yeah. So I was angry with my dad for many years. In fact, I didn't spend a lot of time with him, like middle childhood era. So like 10 to like 13, 14. Like it was like, I know we had visited weekends. Like we were supposed to go visit him, and it was just like, yeah, I don't want to go. And my mom wasn't going to force it. And, and so like, I was just really angry, and being in the situation, he had remarried, and it was just not good.
Got it.
At least for me, it wasn't good.
Well, I can only assume you were the oldest at the time.
Yeah.
You were the most affected.
I was the one that kind of most recognized it.
I get it.
Yeah. Whereas like my brother, like he's always known my stepmom to be in the picture.
Got it.
I, on the other hand, remember the days where she was not.
Sure.
So it was just different. I didn't enjoy being over there for any reason, for any time, really, like in my teenage years. I would say.
When did that forgiveness come in?
Oh yeah, that's
I was curious because obviously it sounds like you're in a very good place right now.
Yeah, we've really restored.
Talk to me about the forgiveness of like going in, not liking the situation your dad created.
Yeah,
and being very frustrated, being very mad at your dad to like being almost accepting to now like loving your dad completely?
Accepting to loving. That's good. You should.
I'm just here asking questions. That's it.
Wow. Okay. Accepting to loving, Jeremy. My goodness. Okay, let's see. This is very candid. Like I was like 18, 19, 20 going through undergrad. Like my mom made sure that like I had allowance, every week. I was like the girl that got allowance in undergrad, which is crazy, but I still did. And so I think, like I said, my mom has just like always been there. My dad was like, it's so hard because he was like never my first call. Like, and that was really hard, right? Like as a child, you're a child, you expect for your dad to be your first call.
Sure.
And the reality was like, I just was often disappointed when he wasn't, like when he couldn't come through. And so I would just never give myself or him the opportunity. And that was more of like acceptance. Like I just accepted that it was what it was. There came a point where my dad stepped in, just, I think his own things, but like stepped in more. My brother had went to go live with him, and we just saw him more often. My dad, it was just, so we just around. But I would say for me, the more I became financially like independent and didn't need to rely on him, the more I was able to just allow him to be who he was going to be. And in allowing him to be who he was going to be, I realized like he actually has always been my biggest cheerleader. And so instead of always looking at it from a deficit of like what he wasn't, I had to really lean into like, yeah, but what he is. Right.
That's good.
I heard something somebody said today, like they left. Like, yeah, they left, but what did they leave? And literally like, yeah, my dad left the home, but what did he leave? Like he always left like an encouraging note. Like my dad would be the one that would like, well, let me pray for you. And it's like, Dad, prayer is not going to pay my electric bill, but let us bow our heads.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
So, it's kind of like, okay, like he's not my first call for that. And
Yeah.
like the more independent I became, the more I just kind of like let my dad be who he's going to be. And now, when I think about like buying a home or making a big decision about a career, like again, my dad's he's always going to be, and not even just my cheerleader, he's affirming. And what I realized is like, I actually need that affirmation more than I need money at this stage in my life. I don't need my parents to do anything for me financially, but I do need them to be affirming. And I do need them to be like a place where at the end of the day, like I'm always accepted.
Sure.
And so I moved, I would say probably in my 20s from accepting him as, like not the person that he was to accepting him as the person that he was. And like accepting him as the person that he was and it was almost like I was tolerating. Like I moved from tolerating him to like allowing him to be who he was going to be. And I grew in empathy. Like I grew empathy because like he wasn't raised with his mother, by his mother. And so like, just empathizing and like, what was that like to not feel, so it just gave me just a sense of compassion for my dad. And not that I see him through these like, eyes of sympathy or empathy or anything like that, but it was just like, it's just so much better when we can just allow people to be who they're going to be.
Right.
Like
it almost sounded like it wasn't him. I mean, he might've changed a little bit, but it was you.
I think it's me.
It was a you thing of like maybe how you viewed your father early on or later on. Like that view obviously over the years changed.
It changed.
And that completely changed obviously your relationship.
Yeah. Like so much more has opened up.
Yeah.
And like I didn't hold my dad to the thing that, I wanted him to be, I guess. I don't even know. And that sounds like crazy, but it was just like, I didn't hold him to something and that is largely shaped by what you see other people's dads are. Like, it's comparison, right?
Sure.
Like you largely see like, oh, well, they da-da-da-da and they da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And like you look at yourself as in, well, I don't, and I'm
Yeah.
not. But like, yeah, but I do have, and the way that my dad just, like I said, shows up for us, like my dad, he's so like, ooh, he takes pictures of like me and my, like first moved here. He wanted to take a picture of me in my office. Like he just is so proud. Like he has a LinkedIn just to comment on me and my siblings' work. I spoke at a conference the other day and my dad was like, I know you showed up well. Like, and his thing's like retired dad. Like he's like retired and, but he's just a proud dad. And I love
so cool.
how he does that. And even, we talk about going back to like the relationship, had my dad not been so affirming and had he not been so loud, like my sister and I say this all the time, like if you're not cheering for me like Stan, I don't want it. Like, and so my boyfriend had to be like as loud or louder and acknowledging like, baby, I'm proud of you. Like I love you. I'm like what it's gonna be. Like my dad has set the standard for letting me know that I'm accepted and creating safety here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's full circle, man. I'm happy. I'm happy there. Andrea, it was awesome sitting down and talking to you.
Thank you.
We started with family. We ended with family.
We started with family. We ended with family.